I took the job on changing it to an open freedom of expression country, which we did. Changed the law within 6 months, built radio stations through the country, connected by internet, trained in investigative reporting to make it happen, and so on. Again, the power of the gift. I expected nothing. And the other story, and I'll say this, again, I hope to treat this quickly, was about North Korea. North Korea, I was responsible at one stage for all of the science and science activities and communication and cooperation through Asia. And I had 44 countries to look after, one ticket each for the things which I was putting on as conferences, for example, because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust that what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong, or they might because they didn't trust what maybe he might say something wrong. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Impermanence, transience are... We cannot escape that. How should we respond? Trying to achieve something valuable and the people around you are stuck in their own egos and self-interest, show little signs of cooperating. Remember the three principles, okay? The three principles were, number one, listen in their terms. Number two, develop a framework of cooperation, which means understanding where they're coming from and finding a way of connecting. And number three, remember the power of the gift. We just say, well, here is something which will absolutely support what you're doing or perhaps what I'm doing, but basically it's for you, and I'm not expecting a reward now. So remain conscious of what your humanity offers. And this is particularly through care for sharing, because the humanity you are part of is what makes you human. And I found these beautiful words from Leo Tolstoy. And the words are, as you'll see on the screen. And these were the last words that Leo Tolstoy, the famous novelist in the 19th century, wrote in his diary just before he died in 1910. The kinder and more thoughtful a person is, the more kindness he can find in other people. Kindness enriches our life. With kindness, mysterious things become clear. Difficult things become easy. Dull things become cheerful. Kindness and compassion are so very, very important. And trust. That means your own integrity. So it comes right back to you. But the power you have is not in your ego. The power you have is in your humanity and the care with others for which you must be trustworthy. So to finish my brief exploration of reality and how to face it fearlessly, I'll again quote Venerable Master Xing Yun to finish. Compassion, compassion is truth in its purest form. With this moral guidance, I would suggest that you have the way in which you are equipped to fearlessly face anything, to fearlessly face anything in your life. And you can therefore face fearlessly reality as it really is. Thank you very much. Well, what Venerable Jiwa is about to take over from me here, and she's going to show much greater wisdom than me in being able to convert what I'm talking about for humanity as a whole, which I'm trying to suggest as a world in which reality of the world in which you're living. What Jiwa will now do is to show you how you can bring this back home to yourself, to the essence of what humanity is. And this is in the power of humanistic Buddhism itself. Over to Jiwa.
Venerable, you are muted at the moment. Are you? Do you have access to unmute? Wonderful. While we're waiting, David Chen says, amazing insight, Professor Stephen. And Winston says, thank you for sharing.
Have I shared? Have I shared? Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Good. Hi. Hi all. Thank you. Thank you so much, Stephen, for your very thought-provoking and rich presentation. We are very, very fortunate to have the benefit of your 78 years of wisdom. I cannot even manage the multiple screens in front of me. And I hope that by the time I reach 78, I can truly, fearlessly face anything that life will throw at me with compassion and create that trust that will be needed. So, before I present, I would like to invite everyone online to a 3-minute reflective break. I'd like you to use this opportunity to reflect on what you have just heard. Is there one thing that resonates with you? If so, what is it? Why is this idea important to you? What can you do about this idea so that it can become real for you? How can you action it? So please feel free to journal your answers to these 3 questions of what, so what, and now what. And when you have finished, you can also feel free to share your answers in the chat if you are comfortable. And I'm sure Stephen will be happy to know in what ways he may have inspired you. So in the meantime, I'm going to unshare so that I can share the music in the share screen again. But in the meantime, do start your reflections. I hope that these questions of what, so what, and now what will be useful to you anytime during your breaks and also in the future. As you hear good presentations, is an opportunity to always give yourself a pause and to journal down your immediate thoughts before they get lost. I hope you will carry this reflective pause practice with you anytime and anywhere. Before I begin, I wish to invite everyone to join me to thank the organizing committee for their incredible work bringing this event together for all of us. Usually, we have an organizing committee of just over 20 people taking care of about 100 participants on site. This year, we may have just under 20 organizing volunteers taking care of 200 participants and speakers scattered all over the world. So I encourage you to join me to give a big round of applause to everyone who has fearlessly faced this challenge. Everyone online, please feel free to join with reactions, flying kisses, bear hugs, whatever. Great. From this point on, I will astonish myself as well as the MC by departing from my script because it's already available to you. But I shall begin first by thanking Meg Hart, who is with us and whom you'll meet very soon, for introducing me to this phrase, fearlessly facing reality, which Stephen and I now use as the title of our presentation. And we shall investigate this topic of fearlessly facing reality word for word, starting from the back. So what is reality today? In my Nantian Institute classes, I like to use the acronym VUCA to describe this so-called real world. So let's start with V, which stands for volatility. And French philosopher Bernard Stiegler's 2019 book argues that our lives and our jobs, as well as our society that we live in today, are becoming increasingly volatile and fragile in an era that's characterized by disruption. But I must say, we can still have fun in spite of disruption. For example, just minutes before my presentation, VUCA stands for uncertainty. You brave ANZ BYC organizing team bearers, you have witnessed the fact. From a year-long planning for an on-site camp in Melbourne in 2020 to another year of replanning for dual mode delivery, and then to know that Sydney and Wollongong are locked down just the week prior to the event. Welcome to our new world. C for complexity. Physicist Len Fisher, whom Stephen knows very well, in his 2009 book, The Perfect Swarm, ends with a reminder that life is complex and that emergent patterns cannot be predicted from simple rules. Perhaps a lesson to all of us who like to idealize and simplify. Please do not expect simple solutions to complex problems. And finally, A for ambiguity. When I first started training to be a project manager, I was taught ambiguity kills the project. So we were taught to press our project members and our sponsors for clarity. Give me a clear scope, clear schedule, and clear resources. But my 2 decades with Guangshan prepared me very well for an ambiguous world today. So look at the quote by American-British author Bill Bryson, in his very impressive 2003 book, A Short History of Nearly Everything, he says that it is okay in this volatile, complex, and uncertain world to say that we do not know. After all, the natural world is imprecise anyway. Can you ask the apple seeds that you just planted, well, how many apples do you intend to grow when you grow up? The tree can't tell you. So the same with us. Sometimes we can't predict what technical problems we may get into. That's the real world. So just in case you think that we can run away from this VUCA world, let me remind everyone that we cannot escape because we are tightly plugged into this reality. We are bound together by what we call our collective karma, for better or for worse. For example, I cannot tell the organizers today that, sorry, I've stage fright, my computer doesn't work, and I will not show up. Because if I do, they will end up with a fright. And I can't do that. So hence, we all have a mission to face reality head on. I have to speak, and you really don't have to listen. There is much to gain when we try to meet reality, meet challenges, and know that, well, perhaps the half of you who have not turned your videos on, you may not even be there, but that doesn't damage my ego. So for those of you who are still with me, take a look at what American broadcaster and author Krista Tippett says. So on the screen, I quote her. Do you agree with this observation, especially with COVID-19, that the old way of life isn't going to work anymore? And we also cannot snap back. But somehow, are we afraid of letting go of what used to work for us in the past? Are we? So what do we do if we do not know what will emerge? So to answer this question, I remind myself of Bohemian Austrian poet and novelist Rainer Maria Rilke, also one of the favorite authors of Mag Heart. He lived about 100 years ago. He says that we should cultivate patience with everything and try to love the questions themselves. He encourages us to live the question. So let's live the COVID-19 question. Rilke has given us permission to sit with our vulnerabilities and treat them like Chan, Kong Ans, which are meant for us to ponder. And these very Kong Ans will be the source of our enlightenment one day in the future. Let's allow new realities to emerge in their own time. So now for the most important part of this presentation's title, fearlessly. One manifestation of Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara, or sometimes we know her as Guan Yin, she's the bestower of fearlessness. When I was much younger, I prayed to the Bodhisattva before exams and overseas trips to protect me. Now I still prostrate before the Bodhisattva to help me out of difficult situations. But more importantly, I also look upon her as my role model. Speaking of role models, Venerable Master Sheng Yun is my life-size role model. If you have not had a chance to read about his incredible 90-plus years that's filled with difficult and even near-death situations, you can visit the website. For a very memorable encounter, let me share this particular story. Many years ago, when I was working at the University of the West in the US, I arranged for the Venerable Master to be interviewed by a motley crew of journalists. I was concerned that they would accost the Master with difficult political questions. But he quietly smiled at my worries and said with confidence that he loved tough questions. He gave the analogy of a bird being pushed towards a cliff, and it would either soar into the skies or drop to its death. And the great master is one who is not afraid of falling, and that is why he can soar high and above everyone else. I found my teacher the master of fearlessness. Meeting reality with patience does lead to less fear. Like many institutions of higher education inspired by Buddhism, the Nantian Institute knows its values, but it struggles to express it to potential students who look for very practical study outcomes. NTI, as a boutique institution offering postgraduate courses in Buddhism and health, is facing a rather worrying future. Just as I faced this reality, I was introduced to Western Sydney University's Professor Jeff Scott, who developed a flipped curriculum that offers NTI a glimmer of hope. So if you're thinking of how you can be relevant in this new world, listen to this carefully. Jeff's research shows that while the successful early career graduate needs to demonstrate competencies, employers and colleagues are actually looking for capabilities such as the ability to remain calm, manage uncertainty, listen with focus, and actively engage with others. Jeff gave NTI hope that our distinctive Bodhisattva values of compassion, wisdom, committed service, and practice are really what's needed to help our graduates become citizens of the VUCA world today. So allow me to conclude by returning to the theme of this camp, faith and legacy. Faith used to conjure up images of fear of a punishing God or clergy telling us of our failings. Instead, Venerable Master Xing Yun eliminates our fear by acknowledging that we are all Buddhas. This means we should have faith in the Buddha nature, or what I call the fountain of goodness that Stephen talked about, that of compassion, of kindness. And these are all inside us. And it is this Buddha nature that will help us fearlessly face reality. For this faith has kept me hopeful in the face of seemingly insurmountable vulnerabilities. And against all odds, NTI continues to persevere and respond to community needs. Now we run 30-minute communities of practice check-in sessions every Sunday at 11. And you can meet Stephen and me and Joey and Mag and everyone else in these sessions. And further, in the first weekend of November, we'll hold an international symposium so that we all can co-create our future using humanistic Buddhist responses to modern crisis. So do join us at communities.nantian.edu.au. This month, I will also go online to share how innovations flow through Fo Guangshan through the Buddha's birthday festivals, and also a talk on the perfection of wisdom through the Buddhist library here in Sydney. I've learned that a legacy does not have to be a heroic accomplishment that goes down in history books. It could be just being brave enough to take up this shared opportunity, this shared responsibility to meet the many challenges ahead. When I saw the wealth of wisdom that Stephen has to share this morning during our rehearsal, I decided to ask the organizers to offer you my script to read at your own time and instead save some time for Stephen and me to have a spontaneous, that is, unrehearsed dialogue that characterizes this VUCA world. So let us walk our talk, Stephen, and see how we can use our compassion and Buddha nature to face the challenge. So Stephen, if you return to the floor, I'll unshare my screen.
Thank you.
So Stephen, what does this VUCA world mean to you?
Complexity. Continuous complexity. I mean, the thing which is just such an obvious thing for us all right now is that all the systems we deal with, for example, are immensely complex. And the interesting thing, one of our colleagues, and you mentioned him in the comments that you made, Len Fisher, he's currently in England. He points out that if you look at each of the person nodes, the decision points in systems, in system theory, and in systems in general, each of them is guided by self-interest. That's the way the whole concept is organized. But we have the ability to change that, to actually be involved in those systems and change the values. Instead of looking at our ego, let's look at what is more powerful, which is our non-self, the non-ego part of this. Let's look at our humanity. Let's look at our connection, because what I'm saying at least in my talk, was the whole point of that is that we are social animals. We are human because we have humanity around and with us. We need to connect with that. That is our strength. Our strength lies in our humanity, not in our ego. That's fundamental to what we can and should do.
That's right. And that's humanistic Buddhism, isn't it? Now,
Yeah,
I'm just going to quickly, you talk about complexity. Let me just share this little cartoon with everyone. That is my life right now. Why all that complexity? So many different screens going on at the same time. Looking at you, looking at the audience, and looking at the slides. Plus, now also looking at Slido. There's a question for you, Stephen. In among the audience, they ask, what is understanding that life is impermanent? What is the point?
The point of impermanence?
What is the point for understanding that life is impermanent?
To me, the point is that to recognize ultimately the reality. The reality is that life is impermanent. Whatever you've set up in terms of, finally you might perhaps settle up with a nice house with your children and with your family and your life and a position or a job which is going to keep going forever, we hope, except the world will change around it, no doubt. But we live particularly with the belief, I think, that we're mortal forever. It's going to keep going on. To understand our impermanence, I think, gives us strength because we're living within a reality. And we're seeing it all pass by, of which we are part of this, and we can't necessarily grasp onto all of that as it goes by, but we most certainly can recognize that, in fact, we're living in a world that is constantly moving, and we are part of that constantly moving and complex world that is changing, all the time changing. And I think that's absolutely critical. And I don't think we to think about that all that much in daily life.
Well, we can't hide away. I remember when I was in Joey's session, he showed a picture that we can't live like an ostrich. So knowing impermanence is important. It's the truth. So there are other questions here also in Slido. It says, what are some good ways to encourage others without expecting something in return and without pressuring them?
Well, I guess it depends a bit on the situation. I mean, if we're trying to, particularly if we're trying to achieve something together, that's the most important situation to be in. And I think in that situation, there will be always, or very, very often, there'll be ways in which the ego of somebody or something which has been important for their lives may be different to mine. And we've got to work that through. And I think at that time, what really, really matters is seriously listening from their point of view and trying to understand things from their point of view, not just from mine, so that we can somehow shape and question and ask and be involved and maybe even suggest possible ways we might work together that might work for both of us in a situation like that. I mean, to me, it's really very much about listening and hearing the other people within their terms, so we can perhaps get into that balloon at least a little bit and share that with them inside. And that, to me, ultimately is what compassion is all about as well.
Walking with the other.
Walking with the other.
Yes.
In fact, I can give you an example. Again, it's back to the United Nations days. We worked with a team called the Mennonite people of the island of Siberut. Now, Siberut is one of the most remote places on earth, I think. You have to get to Padang in Sumatra, then catch an overnight ferry, which is horrible to catch, I can assure you. And then after that, go upriver in a dugout canoe for several hours. By the way, this was the dugout canoe. I seriously wanted to put a flag on the front as my official United Nations vehicle, by the way. Dugout canoe. It's a bit better than the limousines going around Paris. Anyway, and then you walk a bit and you finally get to these people. The point is this: when we first got there, the people said, we love the forest. No, we are very careful that we don't take any more of these particular plants than we should. And we thought, great. These people have a green attitude like we do in our modern world, and they're conscious of their land and their forest and so on. But it was untrue. What it really was they knew if they took too much of this particular plant, their grandfather's, mother's, uncle's dog would die. In other words, it was a ritual. It was something which for 1,000 years had been part of the rituals of their life. It wasn't that they were particularly green in understanding. Now, that was critical because had we actually believed that they were, then we would have trampled all over their traditional ways of doing and thinking about things without realizing we're doing that, and probably destroyed their ability to take control of things for themselves. In other words, people may think very differently to us, but we don't know that unless somehow we can get inside that kind of balloon, which it is that sort of frames or gives an overall meaning to the way they live their lives in their circumstance with their history, which is so different to ours.
That's right. Thank you so much, Stephen. It's past 4:50. There are still some more questions in Slido. We will look at them and we'll answer them offline and give the answers back to the participants. I want to thank you so much, Stephen, for creating such beautiful PowerPoints. It must have taken you a long time to look for those beautiful pictures, putting them together. Oh, this is great. And I must say, the reality of being sandwiched between such a wise Stephen and a very personable Mac hard to come is actually very hard to face up to. But I'm glad that it's now over. So thank you to everyone online, whether you're a participant or an organizer, for your patience, kindness, and attention.
Thank you, Juwai, and please may I also express my total gratitude and appreciation of yourself first. Secondly, for all the other people who've been speaking and certainly organizing. I have no idea at all. This is something in change and in turmoil which you as young people can do that I wouldn't have the slightest clue how to go about. I would have to applaud that as being a reality I can't handle in this modern day and my modern age. But also all the people who've participated in this. Every blessing to every one of you. And I do hope that maybe this couple of days may make a difference to what you do in your lives.
Yes, and don't worry, Stephen. Now that you've sown the seeds, perhaps your next lifetime, when you come back, these people who are out there, the participants, will be telling you about the VUCA world that they are in.
I look forward to that.
So while we may not have time to do the reflective pause now, please feel free to take a few minutes to write down your answers to the what, so, what, now, what questions before you take your break. And may the merits of today be dedicated to a VUCA world that we can make to become more caring and just less wrong. I welcome you to join us in the adventures ahead. Back to you, Phyllis.
Thank you very, very, very much. I would like to thank both of our amazing speakers for such an engaging and refreshing session. It has certainly been a reminder for myself. Please join me in thanking Venerable Dr. Joe Wei and Emeritus Professor of University of Wollongong, Stephen Hill. So as mentioned, we will now go on a break until 4:58. If you would like to submit the answers for Venerable Joe Wei's the reflection tips, do submit them through or write them down. And we are still taking questions through the Slido. And when we start again at 4:58, it will be our class Bodhisattva in Action. Okay, I trust that everybody is back. Is everyone back? If I can get some hands and some waving that everyone is here. Awesome. Oh, why am I on the screen? Okay, is Meg here? Hey, Meg. If you're good to go, I will start to introduce you.
Yeah. Hi, I'm good to go.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Good. We did have a short break, so I wasn't too sure if everyone was ready yet.
It's very good. I'm sure everyone would like break.
Wonderful. So everyone, with the next session will be from 5 to 6. It's called Bodhisattva in Action, Leadership from the Inside Out for Uncertain Times with Meg Hart. Now, Meg Hart is an honorary fellow of Nantian Institute and also a cross-cultural leadership coach and organizational consultant. We will be using Poll Everywhere for this one, and we will also be breaking up into our breakout rooms later on. Just a note when using Poll Everywhere, please only use keywords, not full sentences. So kindness instead of I like kindness. On our screen, if IT could share the questions for discussion, it would be great if everyone can take a screenshot or grab their phones to take the pictures. Sorry, take a picture of the questions. And then once that's come up, oh, okay. So we've got the questions in the Zoom chat. If everyone can just take a screenshot or copy and paste that. And I'll pass it to Meg.
Great.
Welcome, Meg.
Thank you. Thank you to the wonderful organizing team. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay with my earphones on? How's the sound?
It's nice and clear.
Clear, very good. Well, thank you again. I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which we, all of us in Australia, live and do our work. And I'd like to say ni hao and nei ho and good day to participants all around the world in this wonderful conference. Welcome to the final session of the day. It's been a very long day for all of you, and I'm sure you're feeling quite full of many ideas and insights. So what I'd like to do is have a reflective conversation together. And that's going to be quite challenging with 150 people online all around the world. But let's see how we can make this final session useful and inspiring to us all. A true sharing of minds and a sharing of our humanity, as Stephen said. And can I just thank Venerable Ju Wei and also Stephen for very inspiring presentations. You've actually set the stage very nicely to wrap up today with this conversation on how we can really be the change we want to see in the world, as Gandhi said. Because we can have lots of wonderful ideas and concepts, but ultimately it's what action do we take in the world that matters. And as Stephen has pointed out, with so many crises facing us now and so many crises that will face you, the younger generation, in future, skillful action, skillful means is really important now. How do we have the wisdom to be able to select and to be most effective in our action? New slide, please. I'm going to have to direct because I haven't got control of my slides. Thank you. Actually, can I control my slides? Maybe I can. Well, as Venerable pointed out, Shakyamuni Buddha himself said, we are all Buddhas. We are our own masters. In other words, the seed of awakening is in us already. Each one of us has that potential to be awake, to be a Buddha. But we have to water that seed of awakening for it to blossom. We have to plant flowers, as Stephen said. So we're only really Buddhas in progress at present. And our minds have many old imprints, many old habits of, falling asleep, getting distracted, negativity. So we really have to constantly water the seed of awakening and tame our unruly minds, and then practice new habits of awake consciousness. And we have to do it again and again and again. So new slide. I can do that now. As Sun Tzu said, hundreds, thousands of years ago, true victory is self-victory. It's not victory over other people. It is victory over ourselves and over our negativity and our unruly minds. And our faulty perceptions of what is real. But how do we transform our false perceptions and our messy minds into fully awake minds that indeed fearlessly face reality? That's the Bodhisattva journey. And I'm sure you've all heard this word Bodhisattva. Bodhi means awakening and sattva means being. And it's really what the Buddha and other great teachers have pointed out. Every sentient being has the possibility of awakening. But awakening to what, we might ask? Well, to reality. The reality that Stephen and Venerable Jewel have spoken about, which is the reality that everything changes all the time. And that everything is intricately connected with everything else. And perhaps the most important reality that the Buddha spoke of is that every one of us has this Buddha nature, this seed of awake consciousness. Every sentient being contains that seed. Now, I'm trained in Western psychology, and I've lived more than half my life in Asian culture, and in Chinese families, in fact. And I can tell you that the Bodhisattva path is brilliant. It is really a practical psychology for modern life. I've spent a lot of time studying Western psychology, and then looking at the psychology of the Bodhisattva path. And I think that in my work as a coaching psychologist particularly, I work in the area of supporting people to flourish in their lives. Rather than the clinical psychology, which is about fixing up what's wrong, what I like to think my work is about is how do we water the seeds of our potential so that we can flourish. And the Bodhisattva path is a truly practical psychology for transformation, because it combines both a motivation and a method all in one. It's brilliant. It's a way of seeing, and it's also a way of being and behaving that brings out the very best in our humanity. So let's talk now about how we can understand this way of the Bodhisattva. So new slide, please. So what I would like to cover through our conversation, not through a lecture, by the way. I'm not an expert in this any more than you are. We're all experts in this because we're all human beings with this seed of awakening. But what I'm hoping that we can take away this afternoon is a shared experience of this practical wisdom of the Bodhisattva path for navigating daily life in uncertain times, and an opportunity to refresh our own personal Bodhisattva toolkit. And what I mean by toolkit is the handy skills and practices that we can keep in our minds and keep for easy access when we're facing the realities of our lives, the challenges of our lives. The practices and skills that we can draw on daily to manage and even transform our problems and our pain into wisdom. Because that is really the essence of being an aspiring bodhisattva. Aspiring bodhisattvas aren't perfect beings. They're beings like you and I who are using the circumstances of our lives as opportunities to become more wise, to become more kind, to become more beneficial in the world. So being a bodhisattva or walking that bodhisattva path means putting everything that happens onto that path and saying, aha, how can I transform this? How can I transform this moment of anger in myself or this moment of sadness in myself? What is the seed in that of wisdom that I can work with now? We don't actually need to enroll in a university to learn this. We don't need to do an online course because our everyday life offers all the data, all the research opportunities, all the evidence we need to test the hypothesis that Venerable Jue just shared with us. I am a Buddha. I can wake up this very instant because I have a bodhisattva mind. So, new slide, please. Hello. Can we change slides, please? So what we're going to look at is, what do we mean by bodhisattva mind? What is the role of a bodhisattva? What's the job description? And this is going to be the first of 3 chats. So the first is, what is a bodhisattva? The second one is, what's the toolkit that we need to practice being a bodhisattva? And lastly, bodhisattva in action, how do we apply it? So can I ask you now, in your groups, with the help of Phyllis, I'd like to acknowledge Phyllis as my co-facilitator this afternoon. Hi, Phyllis. I can't see you, but I know you're going to help me. If we can break into groups and just talk about what is the role of a bodhisattva, what does it look like? Venerable Jue mentioned a role model. For some of us, a bodhisattva is another person who's a role model in our life. Or maybe it's someone who's a warrior, is very strong. How do you understand in real terms, not in theory, not in beautiful texts, but in your life, what do you look for? What's the role of a bodhisattva to you? So can we take 5 minutes to chat together about that? And Phyllis is going to collect those ideas into Poll Everywhere. I'm just learning about Poll Everywhere, which is great. And we'll share that at the end of our 5 minutes.
Thank you, Meg. Everyone should have received a invitation. So if everyone can hit join to join their individual rooms, reminder that the questions are on the side, and to put your replies in Poll Everywhere. The link is in the Zoom chat. Definitely grab it before you go. Definitely submit your answers before coming back. That would be great. But I think most people are off.
And then will that show on the screen? Will we see the?
Yes, we will.
That's great. I like
awesome.
Better than a flip chart.
Oh, good.
Better than butcher's paper. Thank you.
Yeah, no worries. Okay. Everyone join your groups. Hit join.
Okay. So 5 minutes to talk. Thank you.
So you can see the words are coming up, but then also we've got a bunch of people still actually in the main chat, about 75 people. So some of them, they're split actually between venerables who won't be joining that group discussion, but then also people who are on site. So we've got 3 cities that are on site themselves. So.
Okay. So do we just wait for them? Or?
Yes, so they're still participating. IT will send them more back at the end of the time period, and then
Okay. That's good. It gives me a chance to appreciate what people have written. So that's you, Phyllis, on screen. Hi. Mm. Great. I'm going to slightly change the way I'm doing that. We're doing this now because people are putting up the qualities. That's good.
Okay, no worries.
We just pivot.
Yes.
We're going to pivot.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're actually going to close the breakout rooms now.
Yeah, good. This is really good, what people have done.
Well, we've actually reached the limit for responses, so that's amazing.
Oh, what's the limit?
I'm not sure what it is currently, but I believe maybe only every participant can answer one. So maybe everyone has put in their answer.
Yeah.
We are looking to expand that, but these are the responses that we have now.
Maybe
Great. Waiting for everyone to return.
Okay.
That participant number should go back up when everyone has returned.
I'm just going to turn some lights on. It's getting dark.
Yeah, of course.
Great.
So they're all heading back now.
Okay.
We should have in 45 seconds everybody back.
Okay. Because I can't see everyone right in this format, unfortunately. I'd like to be able to see everyone.
Yeah. If you open up full screen, you might be able to see side-by-side gallery. At least that will be a few more faces.
Oh, the screen's fully open. That's fine.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Another 15 seconds.
Sure. You tell me, right? You let me know.
Will do. Okay, welcome back, everybody. It looks like everyone's been forcibly ejected from their rooms.
I'm sure you didn't really want to leave either. Hey, thank you, everyone. That's great. Look at this wonderful graphic. Isn't that beautiful? And thank you so much for your responses. I can see that what we've done here is we've kind of answered the two questions. The one question is, well, what's the job description of a bodhisattva? And I appreciate we've got mentor and role model and teacher and guide, and what are some other ones? And the helper, yeah, all of those things. And at the same time, you've also looked at what are the qualities of a bodhisattva. Because it's one thing to have a title, right? But actually to have the qualities that are necessary to fulfill that role. And this is wonderful. You know, compassion gets the biggest thumbs up, right? The biggest thing. Selflessness, guidance, kindness, being enlightening. I think you've really covered many of the really important qualities. What I'd like to do now, because this is what's important, isn't it, in our lives, is how do we take these sources of inspiration and translate them into action so that they actually can guide us? What does compassion actually mean in our day-to-day lives? What does kindness actually mean to us in our day-to-day lives? I'd like to, next slide, go to the next slide. Thank you. Yeah.
I think IT is just going to swap presentations.
Yeah, good.
Perfect.
Great. Just go back one. So I'm sure many of you have read this marvelous book, The Way of the Bodhisattva by Shantideva, who was an 8th century practitioner. He was the head of the Nalanda University at one time in India, and he wrote one of the seminal books on the practice of the Bodhisattva. And you have actually outlined many of the qualities that Shantideva proposed were most important to practice the Bodhisattva path. So in the next slide, I'll just share with you, and we'll see how much what we've talked about already matches what. So we just move to the next slide. Yeah. And these were the qualities that he understood to be important as a bodhisattva. The most important thing of all, according to Shantideva, was to have this quality of bodhicitta. And in Sanskrit, that's awakening mind, a mind that's awake. But why is the mind awake? Because it is wishing to be enlightened for the sake of all beings. That through my own enlightenment, through my own awakening, that is the most effective way that I can then reduce the suffering and encourage others to have an awake mind. So this idea of bodhicitta, that we would constantly motivate and remotivate ourselves with the idea that may I be more awake in this very moment, in this situation that I'm in where somebody's being unfair to me or has just said something negative to me or has done something that I wasn't very happy about. May I reframe this situation and remember that what is most important here is that both of us can lift our consciousness through this interaction. So even though I might feel hurt or this is unfair, or I might feel angry, may I remember that my motivation is bodhicitta, that I want to lift my game. I think Michelle Obama put it nicely, when they go low, we go high. And I think that's in a way what bodhicitta is about. When a situation is most difficult or most challenging, may I remember that the most important thing is I want to be of benefit here. I do not want to compound the suffering. that we're experiencing in this moment together, the pain or the anger or whatever. I don't want to contribute to it. How can I shift my own mind from a narrow perspective about myself? This person isn't being fair to me, to a point of, what can I do here to shift this dynamic? What can I do here to expand not just my consciousness, but the other person's consciousness? And that's what a bodhisattva recognizes is always possible. Even in the most dire circumstances, even in the most unjust circumstance, we always have that potential to shift, to reframe this encounter, to actually see that I think Stephen mentioned that the Chinese concept of Nai-Gik, crisis. In this critical moment, there's a danger and there's an opportunity. Nai-Gik. This can be dangerous. I could slip into negativity here. Or there's an opportunity. I can expand my mind. And that moment is available to us all the time, isn't it? In all our encounters throughout the day. Right now, we're in lockdown in Sydney. So some of us have to do this on our own, or some of us have to do it in our enclosed family situation. People get impatient, people get lonely, people get sad. How can I transform this moment where I might be focused on myself into a bigger focus? How can I find the motivation for bodhicitta? Awake, expand my mind now, not narrow my mind. So Shantideva's text spends a whole chapter on the really the magic of bodhicitta, how powerful that is in transforming our consciousness. And I would say, as a psychologist, in a lot of my work with many, many people over the years, that I have found that if it's possible in a situation to reframe the situation, to see the opportunity in it, it can absolutely transform everything. Things that felt so dire can be transformed. So bodhicitta, the mind of awakening and the wish to alleviate the suffering of others through having a more awake mind myself. And then Shantideva talked about confession, not confession like, oh, I'm guilty, I'm bad, not critical, not confession in that sense, but confession in the sense of transparency, the willingness to say, oh, I made a mistake, I can correct it. How can I correct this? So he uses confession in a very proactive way. It's the ability to understand our own, flaw or our own difficulty in a situation and say, okay, we're using confession as a way to signal something. Here's a chance to change because I'm aware that I could actually do this better next time. Commitment, of course, is so important that that we're going to keep working with our own minds, even though we get confused, even though we lose it sometimes. We're never going to give up on ourselves, because if we don't give up on ourselves, there's more chance we won't give up on other people. If we give up on ourselves, not much chance we're going to be there for someone else. So commitment is just, keeping on going. And of course, awareness, that clarity of mind that is always observing our own behavior, our own thoughts, our own interactions with others, and maintaining a mindfulness, a sense of mindfulness about the situation that we're in, and awareness that we want to maintain our good motivation. Similar to vigilance, actually being aware of how ideas, how thoughts can take us off in the wrong direction. Interesting, Confucius actually talked about the seed being, he said, you've got to be aware of the seed, that fine moment when a thought can start to become negative. If you catch the seed, then you can change your mind. And that leads to patience. I mean, actually having the patience with ourselves and with our own, confusion and our own challenges. Someone called that the ultimate heroism, is to remain patient. Again, if we're not patient with ourselves, there's very little chance we'll be patient with other people. So cultivating our own patience with ourselves is so important. And that leads to heroic perseverance, the courage to keep going, the courage not to give up on ourselves or other people. And of course, we develop those qualities through a practice of meditation. And meditation, as I'm sure all of you are aware, is not just sitting on a mat. I mean, that's good to have a formal meditation practice, but it's meditation throughout the day, actually having a meditative attitude to our lives, bringing that awareness into everything that we do. And from that comes wisdom. And Shantideva devotes a whole chapter to wisdom as both a practice, but also an outcome. The outcome of all these other qualities is that we develop a capacity for wisdom. And from that, we can dedicate the merit of our path. We can actually be appreciative of our efforts and the efforts of others. And we can also appreciate how much our sort of ignorance of reality trips us up all the time. And that makes us more generous to ourselves and to other people. So that's Shantideva's model of the Bodhisattva. If you haven't read that wonderful book, I do recommend it. But what I'd like to do now, in the time remaining, is actually, again, in our groups, to have a discussion about how do we actually put this into practice? Because these are lovely words, aren't they? They're really nice words. But when, something hits the fan, when the rubber hits the road, are we able to apply awareness? Are we able to apply patience to a situation? Are we able to bring our meditative insights into this reality, into this moment that is distressing or creating anxiety? So I'd like to shift the slide again to the last question now. We're going to look at this was just a little summary. Some people said you could summarize all of that. Do no harm, try to do good, tame your mind. So our last chat for the day, and I'm sure you're all very ready for dinner or afternoon tea, but I would like you to think of a situation in your personal, professional life that's challenging or distressing you, and imagine that you are a bodhisattva, because you are. Actually, you are a bodhisattva. So how can you resolve or transform this situation for the benefit of everyone involved, which includes yourself? And in doing that, how can you refresh your bodhisattva toolkit? So I'd like, perhaps we can go back to our, what's it called? Poll everywhere slide, where everybody's brought forth the qualities. Is that possible to go back to that slide from our last chat? Thank you. What's the job of a bodhisattva? What are the qualities?
Like it's been changed.
They've closed off okay. Well, we can go to the slide of Shantideva's model, because that really covered a lot of those qualities. And by the way, bodhicitta really is compassion. I mean, that is the true compassion, because it's self-compassion and it's compassion to others. We cannot be compassionate to other people if we are not, first of all, compassionate to ourselves. I think that's quite a misunderstanding often in our Buddhist practice, that we emphasize selflessness, because, there's no self. In reality, there is no self. we understand theoretically, but in reality, we do experience the self. And so it's sometimes difficult to reconcile the teachings on emptiness, the empty nature of reality, with, oh, but I'm having this experience as Meg. And it's very challenging today. So my experience of that is to remember self-compassion is the essence of compassion towards others. If I'm compassionate to myself, if I can forgive myself for my mistakes, if I can confess to myself, yeah, I screwed up a bit there, but, you know, it's not the end of the world and I did the best I could. If I can say that to myself, I've got much more chance of being able to offer my compassion and be compassionate to others. Right. So for the next 10 minutes or so, could we just talk about a practical way in real life that we can apply some of these ideas? And please refer back to your earlier discussion too, the words that you used that were comfortable to you: kindness, patience, generosity. How are you going to apply those qualities in your real life to situations that are challenging you? How can you transform problems into opportunities for wisdom? How can you apply the perspectives and the practices in everyday life? Okay, so 10 minutes in the groups, I think.
Let's do 10 minutes.
Let's do 10 minutes because, yeah.
5:47, if that's all right.
That's perfect. Yeah, that's really good. Yeah.
IT, if you can send us all off.
Yep.
Thank you.
So we do another poll everywhere, right?
That's right. So they'll do one for the third question.
Yeah, yeah.
I think they did. IT did get that up, but
they did it.
Yeah.
Oh,
is that
I'm sorry to talk about they because I can't see everyone's faces.
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. If we can put that into the poll everywhere somehow, can we do it?
So on the screen currently, they've shared the question, the one, and then later on, if you can see on the top, there's actually, so the words will come up, but we can also actually see their responses. So later on, if you are interested in their responses, we can ask IT to show them.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for being patient with the process.
Everyone has gone off to their rooms, and I think those that are left are discussing now. So that should be good.
Okay, but Phyllis, I just realized it because the poll everywhere only takes one word, right? That's going to make it difficult.
So we can just switch the view to show responses, so you can actually see their full response.
Full response, and then we can kind of scroll through. Yeah.
Yeah, it should be okay.
Should be okay. All right, I'll leave it to you. Technology. I just wanted to be useful for people. You know, I wanted to be meaningful. So
yes, I've got. But we can always open it up to people to reply as well. Okay.
Sure. If people would rather express verbally, that's also.
Or they can do it via the Zoom chat. Unfortunately, due to the structure of this, they can't unmute themselves. But they can also submit comments via the chat. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, they can unmute now. Can.
They can unmute. Okay.
They can unmute now. So when we get back to everyone together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right. If you could guide me in this because I'm.
Not at all. So I think they're actually submitting them now, so you can see them on the screen. So if you want to look.
Think of anything. Yeah, patient. Yeah. Fail more, fail better. Yeah, you only learn by doing. Yeah. Taking a break. Mm. Mm. Is everyone back? No.
No, I don't believe so.
No. Okay.
She's just IT's just saying that they've stopped the share screen for a second.
That's fine. Maybe it got too full.
And they're just asking when they do show it again, if you can just ask them to scroll up and down to control it. Just because there is quite a lot of content. Yeah.
Yeah. So can everyone see that screen, the shared screen, when it's on there?
Yes, they should be. They've just stopped sharing. That's okay. I think we've got 4 more minutes left.
Okay. Being organized. Is everyone back or no?
No, not yet. So they'll have 45 seconds to wrap up.
That's
But
great.
you'll see them slowly trickling back
Trickling back.
in. All right, everyone is back. So we've got all the responses. Meg, do you want to quickly go through?
Would you like to, Phyllis? Would you like to?
Yeah,
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
I think Key is controlling them. Key, if you could just quickly slowly through, and we'll read out a couple.
Mm-hmm.
Keep learning and reflecting, being patient, using wisdom. Wisdom is a good resource, definitely.
Yeah.
Putting yourselves in others' shoes and taking a break. I think that's quite common anywhere around the world, is treat others as you would like to be treated.
Mm-hmm. The golden rule.
Very true.
Yeah.
Positive thinking, definitely. It's very, very, very true. If anyone has anything else they would like to add, you can add it in the Zoom chat as well.
How to use the Bodhisattva Toolkit. That comment is so true. It's a skill, isn't it? It's a skill. It's not an intellectual idea. It's something that we put into practice. A bit like a muscle. And the best way to practice is in difficult situations, where our old habits are in danger of taking over, and we choose a different response. And if I can just reinforce this with the findings in neuropsychology now, that our brain, you might have heard of our brain is infinitely plastic. Not plastic in the way that it's going to snap, but plastic in the way that it is constantly able to change and transform. So that's finally science has caught up with what the Buddha said 2,500 years ago, which is basically you can transform, you can be a Buddha. So the Buddha said that. It's taken Western science 2,500 years to actually have the proof of that. But it's helpful, I find in my work, to be able to say to people, your brain, as you experience yourself now, is just the sum total of your habits for however many years you've been alive. And it can seem very real to us, that's how I am. I'm this kind of person. But the good news is, as the Buddha said, is that when we have a strong motivation to be of benefit to others and to ourselves, that motivation can act as a trigger and as an impetus to begin to change our habits. And if we retain that motivation in the midst of our difficulties, in the midst of facing crises, even in the midst of these big social issues like climate change, if we remember that, I have that capacity to respond to this situation in a different way, in a new way. And I can choose how I'm going to respond in this moment. It might be very difficult. We might feel very disheartened by something, and we might think, what can I do? But we actually have that capacity in that very moment to choose a different response. And that's what neuroplasticity has shown us. We can rewire our brains. We can actually rewire. We can become Buddhas. And it's choosing that moment of being awake, choosing that view to say, how would the Buddha handle this situation? What would the Buddha do in this situation? In that moment, we can become a Buddha. So I think I'm going to leave you with that thought, actually. I just see somebody's written, refresh your mind. That's really good. We can refresh our mind any moment we choose, but we need a practice. We need to constantly do our meditation. We need to remind ourselves of our motivation so that we can do that refresh. You know, it's like a computer. We have a refresh button. It's in the mind, but we've got to use it all the time to refresh. You know, when we're in danger of falling into the old habit, the old wiring, it's very strong, the old wiring. That's the moment when we have to refresh and choose a different response, a bigger response, a more compassionate response, a kinder response. At that very moment when we don't feel like doing it, we actually don't want to do it because the old habit is really strong. But in that moment, we can say, and what I find, do you know what I find is the most effective thing is pause. Somebody said that, stop, pause, press the pause button and take a few deep breaths. Breathing is fantastic. Gosh, breathing, it's free, it's available, and it belongs to us. That nobody owns our breathing. We own our breathing. Just take a few moments to breathe deeply and remind ourselves, I can be a bigger person. I like that. Somebody's written, I can be a bigger person. I can be a Buddha. In this moment, I can be a Buddha. So I'm going to, I see many wonderful responses. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining in this experiment. Today, my session today was really experimental because I really haven't used the poll everywhere very much. And I'm much more used to face-to-face interactions, but you've been wonderful. Look at all these wonderful responses. Keep learning and reflecting. Be patient and try again. Never give up. Never give up on yourself because you have Buddha nature. You have Buddha nature, so never give up. It's there. It never goes away. We just have to uncover it. We have to water that seed in ourselves. Compassionate to ourselves, very important. So I'm going to leave you with that thought that your Bodhisattva toolkit is the practices that you use in your daily life to put all the lessons, to put all the events of daily life onto the path of the Bodhisattva. Anything you encounter can become a source of wisdom. Anything. You might think it's the worst thing is happening to you or something, but that is perfect. That is the perfect lesson to open up and to provide wisdom. So the toolkit is how for each one of us is so important that we have a way to remind ourselves, don't give up now. Don't lose heart. This is an opportunity to transform my confusion into wisdom. Fail more, fail better. That's right. Make mistakes. As Stephen said, it's our humanity. We're here on this planet to learn how to be a fully awake human being. That's what our life is about. So we can't give up ever. And actually, even the word fail, I have to challenge that word. There's no failure. Nothing is wasted. Everything brings us closer to the wisdom of true enlightenment. All right. On that note, I'm going to thank everybody for being very present. I can't see you, but I can feel your energy. Can we have a screenshot with everybody? Well, okay, before we go, let's be the change that we want to see in the world. That's the only way we're going to change. the situation, is actually being that ourselves, being a bodhisattva ourselves. It's hard work, but it's very rewarding. And if I can go back to that previous slide, I'd like to dedicate the merit, this one, yeah. As Venerable Jue said, to dedicate the merit of our efforts today, our work together today. And this is a beautiful prayer of Shantideva. As long as space remains, as long as beings remain, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of the world. That's the job of the Bodhisattva, to fearlessly face reality and joyfully participate in the suffering of the world, which is the reality. Thank you so much, everybody, for your time and your attention and your energy. I hope I meet you one day, face to face.
I'm sure it will happen one day. I'm sure it will. Like, we're not going anywhere. I hope you can see everyone's faces, Meg, now on the screen. I believe they've stopped sharing. And they've got a wonderful gallery of everyone's faces. Hello.
Yeah. Hello. Hi, everybody. Oh, let me put it into gallery view. Yeah, I wasn't in. Oh, wow.
There we go.
Hey, I know.
I think there's like 5-6 pages of us.
Hey, let me just see everybody. And thank you. You're all over the world. I mean, this is, wow, hello.
Yes, let's give her a wave.
Give me a wave. I'll give you a wave. Oh, so lovely.
This is actually really amazing.
Oh, this is wonderful. Do we have a photograph of everybody?
I think the media team will be working hard to grab all those screenshots of everyone attending our sessions.
Well, once again, it's been a pleasure, and thank you for your patience as we try to work out how to do this well.
Oh, good. Just very quickly, thank you very much, Meg, for facilitating such an amazing session.
Thank you, Phyllis, for co-facilitating.
Not at all. So our session was Bodhisattva in Action. And so on behalf of the participants, I would like to thank you for sharing your wisdom today. You said you weren't an expert, but it was great.
Oh, great.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good evening or a good afternoon. And do you have your conference tomorrow? Is it going on tomorrow too?
Yes, so we have another day of activities.
Great. Well, all I can say is I wish you courage and wisdom and strength. You know, we can make this world an enlightened world. It's possible. And I think you young people are going to be are really the way to that. But I hope us older people can also be more helpful to you in transforming the world into an enlightened world. So thank you. Thank you, Phyllis.
Thank you. Oh, you can't see my screen, but hang on.
You've just
turn
got
my camera off.
Yeah.
My camera back on.
Okay.
So that does conclude. If I could grab everyone's attention, we do have some notes for tomorrow. We are concluding the day 1 of ANZ BYC 2021, and thank you for joining us. For day 2, please log into Zoom at 9:30. To prepare for the first class. Please ensure that you have read the preparatory materials for day 2's workshop with Venerable Master for Venerable Master Xing Yun's Aspiration to Young Adults. This has been sent to your mailbox, so check that. Also ensure that you have prepared 3 A4 papers, as well as some pens, some colourful markers for our last session on day 2. And also still wearing our state yad shirts, and remember to keep your Zoom background on. For anyone else who has any questions, feel free to leave them in the chat box, and we will get to replying to them. I believe Melbourne has a video they want to share now.
Okay. Thanks, you, everybody. Good evening. Good evening.
Have a good day.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye.
再见，再见。谢谢你，谢谢你。再见。
If anyone wants to join us on GatherTown, you can also do that too. Sydney's doing a thing on there, so message us for details. Key, is there anything else? Okay. That's all for today. You guys can all head off and go grab your dinner, and we'll see you for tomorrow. So remember, pieces of paper, pens, and also reading the material that's been sent to your email. Bye, everyone. Thanks for joining.